Hello class, welcome to lesson 16. We're nearing the end of unit 3. All right, so today's first activity deals with jumping rope. You can see a woman jumping rope here. and they tell us some facts about some people jumping rope here. They say that a school held a jump roping contest and Diego jumped rope for 20 minutes. Okay, now if you look here, we can see in these questions they all are asking us about other people and how their percentage, how their jumping rope time compared to Diego's, right? So it's important to note that since we are comparing all of them to Diego, we are going to say that Diego, his time is 100% of the time that we're comparing the others to. All right, so Jada jumped rope for 15 minutes. What percentage of Diego's time is that? So the first thing that's important to understand with this is that if she jumped rope 15 minutes and we're comparing her to Diego, then we're talking about 15 out of 20. Okay, so 15 out of 20. And another way that we can write 15 out of 20, they show you right down here. It's as a fraction. It's 15 over 20. Okay, so 15 over 20, we can see right there. But the question was about what percentage of Diego's time is that? Well, we should know by now that if we're talking about percentages, we're talking about a rate per 100. So it needs to be out of 100. So if you look at this fraction here, it's not out of 100, right? So what I did is I went ahead and I set up some fraction bars here, and what I am going to do is I'm going to have a denominator of 100, because if we want to know the percentage, then we've got to get the fraction to be out of 100. Okay, and this is actually going to apply for all of these. So I'm going to go ahead and just set up the denominator for all of these here. It's 100 for all of them. That's the denominator, because we are talking about percentages. Move this one down a little bit. Whoops. Okay. Okay. All right, a little bit better. So it's going to be out of 100. So we're going to put 100 here. All right. Not the straightest. There we go. Out of 100. All right, so what we want to do is we want to go from the denominator that we have, which in this case is going to be 20, and we want to get to 100. So we are looking to make a jump from 20 to 100. How can we go from 20 to 100? Well, we're going to multiply times 5. That's also the same thing as dividing by 1/5, by the way. So multiply times 5. So that means we've got to do the same thing here. We've got to take this 15, and we've got to multiply it times 5. Right? So 15 times 5. Okay, 5 times 5. That is 25. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Okay, so that's just a little refresher on multiplying that way. So we know then that this is going to be 75 over 100. All right, so 75 over 100 for this one here. Now, so we can have 75 over 100 as this is going to be for our fraction right here, right? But we can also make any fraction out of 100 into a decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and erase some of these marks here, and we're going to say what decimal this is. 75 over 100, that's really 0.75. Okay, so 0.75, that is the decimal version out of that. Okay, but we know that if we have the fraction out of 100 like this right here, 75 out of 100, that means we know the percentage. 75 out of 100, that's 75%. So we can just go ahead and put 75% in here, right? So as a decimal, 75 out of 100, that means this, you would say this is 75 hundredths, right? 0.75, 75 hundredths with a TH at the end. And so that's 75%, all right? So, since the denominator is the same for each of these, we're going to do the same thing, right? For each of these here, we've got to make that jump. We've got to do times 5 to both the numerator and the denominator. So for 24 times 5, okay, I'm going to skip the multiplication out here. 24 times 5, if you work this out on your paper, you are going to get 120. All right, 120 out of 100. And so if we were to make this into a decimal, right, it's out of 100. It's like we're moving the decimal point 2 places to the left, right? 75 out of 100, we move it 2 places to the left, it became 0.75. For 120, we move it 2 places to the left. That means it's going to be in between the 1 and the 2. That means this is actually going to be 1.2. We'll call it 1.20 for now, just so you can see the idea here. 1.20, okay? And then for this one here, my line is still having a hard time. I'm going to leave it like that because it's not cooperating today. Okay, so we're going to still go from 20 to 100 here. That's the denominators. We're still going to multiply times 5. 9 times 5, if you remember your multiplication tables, 9 times 5 is 45. Okay, so 45 out of 100. So what would the decimal version of that one be? That would be 0.45. 0.45. Okay, so I went ahead and I forgot to put in the percentage amount here, but that's okay because we're going to do the same thing for both of these. Okay, so 1.20 as a percentage, okay, we're going to go ahead and say that it's out of 100. The percentage is out of 100. 120 out of 100, that means it's going to be 120%. Percentage is always out of 100. It's 120 out of 100. It's 120%. And 45 out of 100, that means it's automatically going to be 45%. Okay, and then so what we want you to notice as I erase some of these green marks here, I want you to notice these last two columns here. That's what number 5 talks about. The last two columns in the table, if you look at the values here, the percentage is 100. As a decimal, it's 1 or 1.0. Percentage is 75. As a decimal, it's 0.75. Percentage is 120. As a decimal, it's 1.20. And you can see what the fraction is here. 45% is 0.45, which is 45 out of 100, right? So these are all the same value, okay? It's just we have fractions, decimals, and percents, okay? But they're all the same value. All right.